We are continuing our Marvel Marathon Madness with 2019 X-Men Dark Phoenix, the 12th installment in the X-Men film series when we take into account Deadpool and Deadpool 2, as well as the sequel to X-Men Apocalypse. Now, the plot of this film follows the origin tale of how Jean Grey became the Phoenix. The story revolves around Jean struggling with mental illness after a cosmic force substantially increases her psychic powers, which exposes trauma from her childhood that causes both her mind and her powers to become unbalanced. As Jean tries to avoid hurting the people she loves, other parties seek to control her while others try to kill her. So, let us go ahead and jump straight into the plot. We begin in 1975 with an 8-year-old Jean Grey who was orphaned when her telekinetic powers manifested and her parents seemingly perish in a horrible car crash. Professor Charles Xavier brings her to his school for gifted youngsters, promising to teach her to control her abilities. We move forward to 1992, as Space Shuttle Endeavour's first mission goes awry and the craft is damaged by a solar flare-like energy, so the President calls upon the X-Men to save the crew. While rescuing the crew, Jean is struck by the same unusual energy, and her psychic powers become amplified, but harder to control as her emotional state deteriorates. Xavier reveals to the other X-Men that he suppressed Jean's memories of causing the car crash as a child to keep the psychological trauma from making her unstable, but her enhanced powers is destroying the mental blocks and she is now experiencing PTSD symptoms. This all results in her powers becoming completely erratic and out of control. Jean then travels to her hometown after seeing visions of her father and finds him alive, having survived the car crash. She recovers her memory and realizes that her powers, uncontrollable at the time, caused the crash and killed her mother. The X-Men arrive, and after a skirmish in which Peter Maximoff is injured, Xavier mentally freezes everyone to allow Raven to persuade Jean to come home, but Jean accidentally kills Raven during a violent telekinetic episode. Fleeing to the island of Genosha, which is a mutant refugee run by Eric Lensher, Jean asks him for help in controlling her rage, but then military helicopters arrive demanding Jean's surrender. She attacks them and Eric angrily banishes her. She is then found by Vuk, leader of the shape-shifting alien race known as the Debari, who explains that the cosmic force that Jean absorbed had wiped out the Debari planet, consuming everything in its path until it was drawn to Jean. She offers to help Jean learn to use the force safely. Hank, blaming Xavier for Raven's death, leaves the school and allies with Eric and his faction of mutants in a plan to kill Jean in New York City. Learning of Eric's plan, Kurt teleports the X-Men to New York to save her. While the two factions battle, Eric confronts Jean and Vuk, but is defeated by Jean's amplified powers. Xavier convinces Jean to read his memories, helping her former personality resurface. Remorseful, she attempts to let Vuk take the Phoenix Force from her, but Scott Summers stops her when Vuk reveals that the Debari intend to use the Force to conquer Earth. Government troops then subdue both mutant factions while Vuk escapes. The mutants are confined on a train and Vuk and her Debari forces attack, overpowering the soldiers while the mutants are then freed. Charles and Scott convince Hank, Eric, and his allies that Jean is not beyond help, and they unite to fend off the Debari attackers before Vuk arrives. Charles confers with Jean within his mind, and she forgives him, saving the mutants from the ensuing train wreck and disintegrating the remaining Debari. Vuk again attempts to drain the force from Jean, who flies them into space to unleash all of her power and kill Vuk in the process. Jean then transforms into a phoenix-shaped being of energy. Back at the school, Xavier decides that he will retire as dean, but before he does so, he renames the school to Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters, and Hank takes his place. Now, while sitting at a coffee shop in Paris, Charles is surprised by Eric, who invites him to a game of chess, while we see in the sky a flaming phoenix appearing. So, taking a second crack at the Dark Phoenix saga did not seem to help it be successful, either as a great story or, for that matter, a box office victory. The writing and overall story was not good, and the pacing did not help either. Honestly, while I do think that this film did a slightly better job than The Last Stand at adapting the story of Jean and the Phoenix Force, I still believe that The Last Stand was the better movie out of the two. Dark Phoenix felt like it was cobbled together out of unfitting puzzle pieces that were just, crammed together to try and make a movie. And while you can never say that the cast was bad, it was the overall approach to the story and direction that made this film really unenjoyable. Not counting the New Mutants as it was a spin-off, I was really sad that this film was the last one to bookend the Fox X-Men franchise, as it deserved a better send-off. I will say this, the added focus towards Cyclops in this movie was great, and we also got a little Dazzler cameo, which was nice, and I still love the portrayal that McAvoy and Fassbender brought to Xavier and Eric, as they are so good. But with that being said, unfortunately the movie for me sputtered off and was just not good, and not what I was hoping. Maybe if they put in substantial more effort into the writing and have also spread out the Phoenix arc to at least 2 movies, maybe that would have made it better, but we'll never know. Overall, this was just not it, Chief, and that is why I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. Now, the next film I will cover will be 2020 The New Mutants, and following that will be 2002 Spider-Man, so stay tuned, and please do consider hitting the like button and subscribing. I would truly be grateful. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for spending your time with me. Until our next adventure, y'all stay classy.